We have liftoff here at the Rythmia Live Studios. Our Christian Minson, your host for this Breathwork edition. Just on here live. If you're joining on the recording, just know that the first 4 minutes is introductions. Just skip 4 minutes ahead, and you'll be right into the beginning of the content. So here I am waiting now for somebody to show up. And we have our first attendee, Gord Barrett. Welcome. 3 people on. Welcome, welcome. Tell me where you're from if you're coming on. Say hi. Use that chat bar. Get used to using the fingers and the thumbs up and all that kind of stuff. And there we go. Some thumbs up. A few people. Martin. Zamora, welcome, welcome. Welcome as you all join here in sunny Guanacaste, Costa Rica. We're into the windy season now, and that's where the wind blows a bit. Keeps it a little cooler. Hey there, Martin. Martin saying hi. Where are you coming from, Martin? I can't remember. Julie, hello, with a thumbs up, welcome. Tell me where you're from as you're joining on so I can say hi from wherever. If you really want, tell me what the temperature is where you are. Today, it's probably 93-ish degrees in Fahrenheit, 30-ish degrees in Celsius. See if I can find out exactly what. So, can a narcissist cure arrhythmia? Wow, what an interesting question. Are you the narcissist or are you talking for somebody else? They're definite, let's say this, Jerry Powell, our CEO, is a self-proclaimed pretty much first-class sociopath slash narcissist, something that should never have been able to be changed, and his personality has significantly changed through all his medicine work. So I would say there's a good bet. So, Martin, Montreal, I was just looking on that, the Chute area there. 15 degrees Fahrenheit, which is minus whatever Celsius. I'm feeling for you out there because it's nice and warm here. Have to say that, and wish that you could all come out here. Gord, happy Friday from Ontario. Excellent. Just read Jerry's book last night. Beautiful. Yeah, thumbs, hearts up. Celeste is on. Beautiful. And David from Seattle. What's the temperature up there in Seattle right now? Yeah, Martin, minus 20 Celsius. Woo-wee. So we got everybody, and Julie from San Diego. Excellent. It looks like I'll be coming out to San Diego beginning of March, just quickly before I go on to New Mexico, where I'll be doing breathwork at Greg Braden's event. If any of you know Greg Braden, give me some thumbs ups. Greg Braden, thought leader since the 1990s. He came here last year as one of our guests. He travels all over the world doing his programs. He fell in love with the breathwork and had me do one for his program last year of 160 people. This year, the same program, we have 260 people. So 260 people are going to experience the breathwork all at once over 2 days. Unfortunately, that program is sold out, so if anybody's interested, it's just not going to happen. All right, well, we are at the top of the hour. Hawaii, excellent. Clarissa, you have books too, Christian? Gord. So yeah, there's a book. Let me introduce myself, and then we'll get all into that. Victoria from Oceanside, 57 degrees. Welcome. Haven't heard from you in a while. I want to catch up. Dana from cold, snowy Ontario. Desiree, Seattle's in the 40s. Zamora, 90 here at Guanacaste. Yes, I'm aware of that. All right, so welcome everybody. I am R. Christian Minson, your catalyst for transformation. breathwork director here at Rythmia Life Advancement Center in Guanacaste, Costa Rica. I do the Friday afternoon Facebook Lives here, Breathwork Edition. I am the director of the Breathwork program here. I'm a senior trainer with the Transformational Breath Foundation for the last 12 years, former monk, speaker, and author, contributing author to this book, Align, Expand, and Succeed, Shifting the Paradigm of Entrepreneurial Success, which is all about merging the field of consciousness and business into this new realm of conscious entrepreneurship that maybe you've heard of in the last few years. Anyway, so that's me, and today our subject is awakening versus mastery. Awakening versus mastery. We're really discussing the process of evolution, our evolution of consciousness, and really our self-realization or self-actualization, how we can become this process of becoming the best self that we can be, the best self, meaning our best conscious self, not just evolution from a physical standpoint where, like Darwin's theory, the law of the fittest and all this, but really evolution is the name of the game. And this is why I wanted to talk about this subject, because really life is about transformation. There is no standing still in life. You're either moving forward, which means you're transforming and learning new things and learning how to express more of your higher self, or you're moving backward. And transformation, though, is it a one-shot process? Is it something that just happens and it's all over? It's really that important to understand that evolution is a perpetual process. Every day we are evolving more and more. And again, every day we're either going forward or going backward. And the more pain you feel in the life is an indication of you moving backwards. The more happiness and joy you feel in life is an indication of you moving forward. So I dare say most of us out there want to feel more happiness and joy. If you're with me, give me some thumbs up or hearts or whatever. And so this is really what this topic is all about. How do we evolve, and what is awakening? What is ultimately mastery? So what's the difference between these two? And interesting that I mentioned Greg Braden in the beginning, because when he came here last year, he came here last February, and we had a discussion about the different types, the different paths. Because here at Rythmia we have breath work, we have plant medicine, of course we have classes and wisdom that is shared, we have yoga. We were talking about where we were on our paths, and he was the one that really, I knew this on some level, but he's the one that really communicated it in a way that was very understandable. And there was this concept of awakening versus mastery. So, some concepts to keep in mind here. That ego is the part of you that you already know. So if you think about it, you as your ego is the part of you that is known, and that changes, that can grow. And God, or the universal energy, is the part of you yet to be known. So this process of evolution is really learning to expand our box so that more gets known. So more of this God self becomes part of our ego self or our known self, and we keep expanding until the two ultimately are the same. And awakening really is then becoming aware of this greater dimension of ourselves, this higher self, this God self, recognizing that we aren't just this little box that we perceive ourselves to be. And all of a sudden, awakening is the box being blown open, and us, being shown or being in tune with the greater self of who we are, and then the box comes back together, and usually then it's a little bigger. We start to see that, oh, we're more than we originally thought we are. But then we settle down back into a bigger sense of who we are, but we box that in until we blow it open again. This seems to be the continual process. So awakening really is that initial boost of stepping into our spiritual self, or seeing the possibilities beyond what we already know, and expanding that box. This is bugging me. There we go. Mastery, on the other hand, is really what happens afterwards. There is, in business and different courses I've taken, some of my teachers have espoused this 10,000 hour rule. Have you ever heard of that? The 10,000 hour rule, which means if you want to master anything, spend 10,000 hours doing it. So say I play guitar. If I really wanted to be a master of the guitar, I would spend 10,000 hours. And by the time you spent 10,000 hours practicing, studying, whatever, you would be a master. If you want to master business, then you got to spend 10,000 hours working the ins and outs of business. If you want to master relationships, again, spend 10,000 hours studying, evolving, and getting greater knowledge and greater experience in the field of relationships. But that 10,000 hours gives you a clue as to what mastery is. Mastery is this perpetual process. It's what happens after awakening, right? It's how we bring our awakening, the awakened consciousness that happens in that usually one-shot deal, into everyday life. So first we awaken, then it's like, all right, how do I keep my mind open? How do I keep my heart open? How do I keep this expansion from closing back down? And this is what mastery is all about, bringing this day by day into the everyday world. And this isn't easy because our environment isn't always so supportive. To give you an illustration of this in a way, my spiritual teacher, I mentioned I was a monk, following the teacher, Paramahansa Yogananda. And Yogananda gives this story where his spiritual master gave him an awakening. He gave him an experience of what they call in the East samadhi, or samadhi is this awakening to divine realization. Like his mind and heart were blown open, and he saw the universe and all its mechanisms, and he saw how he was one with all the universe, and he saw all that, and it's like, wow, I am all that. And then, after I think it was 45 minutes or an hour worth of that experience, he kind of came back into his body and recognized where he was, and he saw his master before him, and his master, who was named Sri Yukteswar, then handed him a broom and said, now let's go sweep the porch. So in that little sentence really was the essence of mastery, awakening and mastery. The awakening happened, he gave him that big experience. Now the mastery was hold on to that and work the mundane tasks of your day-to-day life. And so this is really what we're getting at. And I hear a lot of people are saying, hi, hello. I'm just gonna kind of say hi. Sheila's saying people aren't supportive either. And when we're talking about your environment and people, once you've had that awakening, going back in. So mastery is really the day-to-day application of your awakening. It's integrating it into your life, making it a way of being. And this is really critical, that because a lot of, it's so significant here, because Rythmia is a place of awakening. It really is a place where people come and your consciousness is clouded. You've been under the heavy storm of depression or anxieties or stress or trauma in life, and through the week here at Rythmia, the doors get blown open. You see clearly who you truly are and how all this stuff is just an overlay. It's like mud thrown on a golden statue. You know, if the golden statue is all muddy, then it's not going to appear golden, right? It's going to look like dirt. So we rub that away, and then we actually realize the gold is underneath. So it's making this a way of being. So how do we do this? How do we awaken, and how do we then keep it going and master it? And before I answer that, just say hi to a few of you people. Thanks, and then what? So what do you mean by and then what? Hopefully I'm going to explain that, but if you get a specific question there, let me know. So first of all, with awakening, use shortcuts. Where life is a perpetual process of awakening anyway. I've used this phrase a lot. We're not physical beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a physical experience. And this physical experience is this experience of awakening. In Rythmia speak, and what Jerry talks about here, we're learning how to merge back with our soul. At an early age, or even before we came out of the womb, we split from our soul. And this is by design, so that we can learn through the process of coming back together important lessons in life and help us to evolve and grow. So, but in the natural course of life, the masters of the East say it takes about 1 million years of normal living to evolve into our realized self. Well, I don't know about you, but that seems like an awful long time to me, and many, 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 many incarnations. So we're really looking for a life hack. That's a popular term these days. We got hacks in our health, hacks in our consciousness. How do we hack into this process and get a leg up, make it faster, make it smoother? And so one of the big things you can do is find a supportive environment. We talked about your environment, your people around not being so supportive to your endeavors. And Yogananda used to say, environment is stronger than willpower, which basically, it's a relative statement. Our willpower is ultimately our strongest thing, but our willpower is very influenced by our environment. And if you day in and day out are hanging out with a dozen people who share the same bad habit that you're trying to get out of, let's say smoking. If you're trying to quit smoking, or you're not a smoker even, but you live and work with a dozen smokers, eventually it's quite possible that you'll just start smoking, because your environment is so intensively feeding that to you. Maybe for some it might be easier to conceptualize drinking coffee. If you're not a coffee drinker and you're in an office where everybody else drinks coffee, and day in and day out you go to the water cooler to get water, but everybody's like, can I pour you a coffee? No, I don't. Well, you don't drink coffee? Everybody does. Eventually you're going to say, okay, pour me a cup. And you drink a little, you're probably not going to like it, but you'll habitualize yourself, and before you know it, you're a coffee drinker. So environment is stronger than willpower. Find a supportive environment. Rythmia is a supportive environment. Now it's an environment for awakening, right? It's not an environment you're going to stay in perpetually for the rest of your life, but it is a great place to give you that space, that safe container to awaken. The seminars that I teach in breathwork as well, that those are safe environments to awaken. Some of the shortcuts, and Rythmia is great for them. Jerry got his transmissions from the moon. I mean, he downloaded his information during his plant ceremonies, and Moon told him there's 2 shortcuts that we'll be using here at Rythmia. One is plant medicine, and 2 is breathwork. And voila, here I am, the director of the breathwork program. I highly subscribe to that one, and both of them in actuality are powerful tools for bringing us into awakening. Another form of awakening, another shortcut, is to find a spiritual master who is actually awakened and get in and get what they call the guru's diksha, which is a diksha is a transmission. The guru transmits his consciousness or her consciousness to you in some way. Maybe they tap you on the forehead, or punch your heart like Yogananda's guru did, or in some interaction with them, they flip your consciousness into theirs temporarily to give you an understanding of what reality is truly about, and how much we've been seeing is not so real. So that requires a little bit of effort, though, getting out, finding a guru, and then finding out if that guru is a true master or not, and then attempting to get that blessing. But so find the shortcuts, and it is helpful too if you develop a spiritual routine in advance. Having a spiritual routine will promote an awakening in you. This is what a spiritual routine is really all about. It's both, pre-routine, pre-awakening. The routine can help to stimulate an awakening, and of course, once you've had the awakening, that routine is going to be there more in the mastery phase. So before I get into mastery, let's look at it. I see a few comments. Oksana says, I was shown being one with everything around in my dream. I asked them why come into 3D. It was shown that why we choose to do it, what we can accomplish in the body we couldn't do while being everything. Yeah. So again, just saying that there are lessons here to learn in this three-dimensional reality. That I was talking with somebody the other day. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience, but we are having this physical experience, right? So both planes are important for us to live and thrive in. I see one of the occupational hazards of the spiritual life, I saw this as a monk, was that we tend to deny the importance of the physical plane of existence, right? So we're all lofty and got your eye on the prize, heaven, whatever, but the reality of here and now gets largely directed. Perhaps even more is the opposite is true, that people are so immersed in the physical reality that they don't even see or pay heed to the spiritual reality, which if you're gonna err on being all in one or the other, say get in that spirituality, since it is our truest dimension. But being here in this physical world, there's lessons for us to learn. We have to learn how to navigate this and how to look for the lessons that we are to learn. So thanks for that, Raphael. Do you think experiencing psychedelics might be an impulse? I think that it can be. And so you have to really, this is a question you have to ask yourself, and that you have to be blatantly honest with yourself and say, I'm not sure I've been through awakening, but I guess so. Same person. The experiencing psychedelics can be an impulsive thing if you're not doing it for the right reasons. Everything comes down to motivation. Let's take an extreme example, killing people, right? Killing people, if we just say, is it right to kill people? Of course, we'd say no, right? It's bad. Killing is not what we're about. We want to promote life and all that. However, is it all right to kill somebody who's coming at you and about to kill you, your wife, and your children? Now there's a different context. There's a different motivation. It's not all right to kill people just because you want to kill them or you want something of theirs, and so you kill them to get it. But killing in self-defense, we seem to have a different perspective on that, and say that yes, we prefer not to kill, but if it's us or them, get it done. So the same thing when we're talking about, our motivation for taking plant medicine, our motivation for experiencing some of these things. It can be impulsive, it can be ego-driven, we want to see bright colors, we want to have fun experiences or whatever, or it can be very, very thoughtful, very premeditated, as by and large, I'd say the vast majority of people, 99.9% of the people who come here to Rythmia are people who are truly here for healing, truly here for this awakening, truly here to move their life forward out of the ruts they've been in, out of the stuckness, out of the stagnant energy. And so that motivation, I think then we start to see plant medicines Hopefully I'm still connected. All right, good. We are in the middle of windy season, which means the internet connection may go in and out. After the awakening, how to go back to the 3D life? I'll talk about that in just a second here. I just love Rythmia and the history from the owner. It's so powerful, encouraging. Thank you, Clarissa. Tiago, why do you think ayahuasca plant medicine is one of the shortcuts, one of the tools that we use here at Rythmia? One of the great things is, we're talking about impulsive use versus premeditated or pre-thought out use. One of the things is, where are you going to do it? You want to do it in a place that's all the facility in place to handle any crisis that arises. That's what Rythmia is all about. You can go do ayahuasca out in the middle of the jungle with an authentic shaman, and sometimes you're going to be in the middle of the jungle with somebody who claims to be an authentic shaman but is a shyster. Or you can do it in somebody's living room. But I dare say in those environments, you have very little access to true medical assistance if you need it at any time. And if you're really doing this as a path to awakening, then you want to have all of the safeguards that you can have in place. It's not like you and your friends going out back and taking drugs and seeing what happens, and then you allergic to something and he goes into shock or stops breathing, and then what? So those kind of things happen in an ayahuasca environment, but things happen from time to time, and it's helpful to have that medical support. Let's see, Clarissa, Sheila, as a child, I found that writing in a journal opened up my awareness. Beautiful. I talk about, I've had a Facebook Live, the 5 Habits of Highly Spiritual People, and introspection is one of those habits. So these are 5 habits. We could easily call them the 5 habits of awakening, meditation or communion, some kind of activity to get yourself in touch with your higher self. Introspection, which is writing in a journal or thinking about your day, thinking how you could be better. Study, which is really assimilating the understandings, the ideas of other people. What's the other? Exercise, physical exercise, and then service. And this is really bringing me into the subject of mastery. Then, how do we master? So we talked about really how we awaken, find a supporting environment, use your shortcuts. That's going to help you. So mastery is really taking your awakening and making it a lifestyle, making it happen day after day after day. Or I wouldn't say necessarily making it happen, because often awakening comes with a boom, like big fireworks and big fanfare. And sometimes that's what you need for you to realize that something different is happening. It's just this big explosion in your consciousness. However, to expect that to happen day after day after day is kind of a fallacy. What you're trying to do is take the realizations that happen from that awakening and then apply them in your life, so that the baseline of your life, let's say maybe it's way down here, you're just skimming by, and then you get awakened, and all of a sudden you got But if you're trying to do something about it, I mean, if you don't do anything about it, eventually you can go back down to where you are. Whereas you come up, you start to go down. Mastery is now trying to live at a new baseline level, right? So you were living down here at this baseline level, you had an awakening, and now you're trying to live at a higher baseline level, which means that there's, you might not perceive, if day to day you're living at this higher level, it might not be so dramatic to have these, these awakenings, because you're only traveling, metaphorically, a smaller distance from when your consciousness is way down here. Now, from here to here, it seems like a big deal. But if you're living up here at this level, then you have an awakening, it's not going to seem that dramatic or that great. That's the good news, really, because what it's really saying is that your day-to-day life is at a much your life. All of these things are what the true value of that awakening, and then mastering it is to master the art of happiness, master the art of staying in unconditional love, master the ability to help others, and be more others-oriented than selfishness-oriented. Getting back into, somebody was asking about the narcissist, which that can happen. They can go from being fully about me to seeing that there's a world that they can care about, and when they do start caring about it, how it fulfills them inside. So, so many of the things that I just enumerated, those habits of highly spiritual people, are really the ways to mastery. So the first thing that we really need to do is have a daily routine, a daily practice. We talk about this at the end of the week in Rythmia, because it's going to help you get through what we call the transition period. There's about a 14-day period once you go home where things get a little choppy, because you change, but your environment hasn't. You plug back into your environment, and you're a little bit off balance. So having a routine, a spiritual routine, is vital. The two top routines I recommend are either meditation or breath work. And really, to me, the purpose of the routine, if we're really getting down to it, is to center you, to get you to let go of temporarily, in the best sense you can, just let go of everything in the world. The bills you have to pay, the relationships you're in, the job demands that are waiting for you after you get out of your meditation, but let go of all of that and commune solely with you and your inner self, God, your higher life force energy. And really let that be the only thing that matters for that 5 minutes, for that 10 minutes, for that 15 or 30 minutes that you spend in that routine activity. Do this every day. What this is doing is anchoring you into the reality of your awakening, the expansion that you experienced in your awakening is a greater understanding of who you are as this higher self being. So every day that you're practicing, you're spending just a little bit of time saying, this is the only thing that matters. And as you anchor yourself in that, Then you step into your physical life with all its demands, all the deadlines, the work responsibilities, the family responsibilities. And while those things buffet you around from side to side, you stay anchored, more anchored in your higher self. Do you know the law of attraction? Yeah, the secret and how to make it work. Yeah, that's pretty much what this whole Facebook Live is about, Tiago. So if you haven't heard it from the beginning, I recommend once the recording's up, go ahead and listen to it again. This is putting essentially the law of attraction into practical reality, which takes work, it takes effort. The law of attraction is not a philosophy where you can just think yourself into the your perfect life. Unless, of course, your perfect life is to sit on the couch and eat potato chips, then you can pretty much achieve that pretty easily through just thinking about it. So, daily practice number 1. Right thinking is another way to keep so you've awakened your consciousness to these new concepts, to this higher self, but there's this thing going on. There's the habit of you remembering who you were. Remember you in this littler box, your ego self. And that's trying to draw you back and say, hey, this is who you were. This is who you knew you were. So forget all that stuff. Stay with what you knew. Don't try to rock the boat, so to speak. This is what's going on in the deeper realms of your subconscious ego. So right thinking means to stay in the thought patterns of this expanded self. So some of the ways to do that is to study higher level thought. Find some spiritual masters that you agree with. Watch these Facebook Lives from Rythmia. The people that give them have a certain amount of awakening and mastery under their belt. Apprentice with spiritual figures. Apprentice with anybody who's got knowledge that you want, that you want, and they have. So, again, if you're going to be a swordsmith, you're going to apprentice under somebody who's a master forger, and they're going to you're going to learn their tips, their techniques, and how to do it by being with them day in and day out. And this can be a mentor relationship, this can be a coaching relationship, this can be an apprenticeship, and this can be like I did, jumping into a monastery and then being immersed in that environment. However you do it, it is to stay in that right thinking, to keep thinking higher. Take courses. That's probably the easiest online these days, very accessible to get wisdom moving in your direction and you being able to assimilate it easily. The next daily practice, the routine here to keep you on the path of mastery is perpetual self-awareness. And this is what we talked about, really being the idea of introspecting. Forget who it was, just talked about how they wrote in their journal. That helped their awakening. And I dare say if you continue to write in your journal, that changes your awakening into mastery. You start seeing how journaling about your day, journaling about the struggles you had. Here I was, I'm trying to lose weight, and I walked by a bakery. And what did I do? I looked at this display, and then I said, well, I'll just go in and smell the goods, right? And then before you know it, you ate 5 pastries and you're off the diet. So if you're journaling about this, you get clear on where where the error happened. In other words, so maybe it was that you should take another street or walk on the other side of the street so you don't even pass the bakery. Or when you know that the bakery's there, you're not going to look. You're just going to move straight on through. Or you're going to plug your nose while you walk by so you're not tempted by the smell and all that. See, the introspection starts to give you clues as to why you either succeeded in your endeavors or temporarily were set back. And then from those clues, you can further introspect into the future and say, what's my game plan for how I'm going to stay on track? You know, your awakening tells you that you got to let go of certain bad habits, or that, you know, a certain lifestyle now is necessary for you to keep living. So you want to allow yourself to live that, but you've got to strategize how it is, because your old self is continuously wanting to reclaim you. Hopefully that's clear. The next part of this mastery is upkeeping the physical vehicle, which essentially means your body. Right? This is vitally important. As I mentioned, we're spiritual beings having a physical experience, but that physical experience happens in this vehicle. And if this vehicle isn't kept up, it's a lot harder to stay focused on that spiritual dimension. Think about if you went to church every week. In the church, you live in a cold environment like Montreal, Canada, or Ontario, those areas, Minnesota, and the church, you know, the church had broken walls and the heating didn't work and all that. It's going to be very hard to stay focused on the message or stay focused on your meditations, right? When the wind is whipping through and freezing you. So this is an analogy to, if you are trying to stay in alignment with the higher self, continue to perpetuate the wisdom that came through the awakening, yet your body vehicle has broken down. A lot of your attention goes back to that vehicle. You know, the pains you feel, trying to get comfortable, finding remedies for it. So it's vital that you keep this physical being in optimal health. And of course, exercise is probably the number one way to do that. Keeping it moving, keeping it healthy, and diet being the second most important. Finding a healthy way to feed this body. And as they say, you are what you eat, right? So if you're eating cream puff marshmallows every day, I'm afraid to say you are a cream puff marshmallow. If you're eating broccoli and nuts and healthy, fresh fruits and vegetables, you are extracting the life force essence out of those foods, and then you are able to I'm going to win the competition and come to Rythmia. Good. Do it, Justin. And howdy from Durham, North Carolina. Thanks, Michael. All right, so one of the last points I want to make is, in this process, is karmic application. You want to apply yourself on this physical world. This is really where the rubber meets the road. All this wisdom has to manifest and show up on this plane, and that's really where the two meet, is that bringing the wisdom of our higher self into this three-dimensional hell. If we keep our lower thoughts manifest here, we create heaven if we bring those higher thoughts down and manifest them here in this physical world. So primarily how we do that is through the spirit of service, which means to become others-oriented, to do everything we do in order to benefit others and ultimately benefit ourselves as a result, rather than thinking me, my, I, me, mine, all the, go in, how do we get the most at the expense of everybody else? So service doesn't mean you have to do anything differently. It just means do what you're doing from a different perspective, from that perspective of how can I really help people? If you're a janitor, need a job. I need money, so then I can go to the strip club every weekend and all that. You know, pretty. Others, you can say, well, I'm here to create a clean environment so others can thrive and not not succumb to disease and all these things. I'm here to bring cleanliness to the world. As they say, cleanliness is next to godliness. So you're essentially manifesting that godliness on the planet. So hopefully that gives you, in that mundane example, a sense of how you can do what you're doing now, but just do it from a spirit of helping others rather than just to help yourself. So I think really the final point I want to make here is that this is all a process. So mastery is a process. It's a lifelong process. And beat yourself up if you fall. In fact, the best thing you can do is recognize that falling is part of the process. If you fall, you know better next time. You're so caught up in not falling, and you keep yourself out of danger. You're really not taking yourself out of your comfort zone. You're really staying in the zone of the known. These are indications that you've stepped out. And that's the good news. So the more mistakes you make, really, the more you fall, the more you find yourself off course, actually the better, as long as you bring yourself back on and keep going, because it means that you're expanding. So one, don't beat yourself up, and two, if possible, look at it from the positive perspective, that you're learning and growing, and every fall is an opportunity to pick yourself back up and know how not to fall next time. That being said, thank you for your service. Thanks. I hope to serve. Hi, Christian. Hey, Tom. And fall down 7 times, get up 8. That's it, Kevin. That's pretty much it. You just as many times down. It's the same way with meditation. As many times as your mind wanders, you bring it back. So, my final thoughts are really just to take this to heart. Think about life is an evolution, right? Life is this perpetual process of becoming more and more aware of the greater dimension of who we are, actualizing that on this third dimension, and continuing to grow in that way, and then ultimately sharing it with others. We're always moving forward or we're moving back. There's no standing still. So apply what you receive from these awakenings so you can fulfill your destiny and realize the fullest potential that you have. And that is what we're here at Rythmia to help you to do. And that is something that, beyond the awakening that you get here, you really, it is the process of your life to find that path, to stay on that ever upward progression. So with that, how can we control our ego and focus on the awakening? There, I would say, Tiago, I'm running out of time. A while back, so look that one up, and that should answer your question for you. So until next week, everyone, thank you very much. This is our Christian Minson signing off. Rythmia Live. Call this number above. Have the experience of a lifetime, awakening to your higher potential, and then getting to take that home and work in that program for the rest of your life until you've mastered it. Namaste.